I bring you warm greetings from Uganda and Kampala City. Thank you for this fantastic opportunity to join you in this leadership seminar in this blessed nation of Zimbabwe. Greetings from my family, and I want to congratulate the Evangelical Fellowship of Zimbabwe on your inaugural leadership seminar. Congratulations, may the work grow 100-fold. Learning leadership is a lifetime journey, and I'll share 3 experiences that have taught me significant lessons in my own leadership journey. First, I'll speak as a legal practitioner working in a law firm, and then I'll share an example working as a commissioner working for the ruling political party in our nation. And finally, I'll speak as a chief executive of Kampala, the capital city of Uganda. I was thrust into my first business leadership role when I became the proprietor of a law firm in Kampala City way back in 1992. I stepped into the very large shoes of my former boss, who tragically passed away in a motor accident. I had worked for him for 5 years, and I had learned the trade as his mentee. He was very, very faithful in training me. But was I ready for this task? Not at all. At the time, I was a young mother. My son was an overactive 1-year-old. I was expecting my second child, but I took up this task. I took it up. I have learned that assignments do not become because you are prepared. Assignments come because you are available. So I embraced it with my 2 hands, and I started working as a pregnant woman with a little boy. I recall one day one of our clients came to our law firm. We were managing his properties before my boss died. He was a tall, big man, imposing, and he spoke in a very booming voice. He refused to sit down in my office, and he talked down at me. He said, "You are the one." And I said, "Yes, sir, I am the one." I replied, and I swung my chair to face him squarely. "Will you manage?" He continued. His question was loaded with despise, as was his look. I didn't know whether it was because I was a woman, or because I was pregnant, or because I just looked young. But I ignored his demeaning attitude, and I said to him, "Sir, just try us for 1 year. Let's do your business for 1 year." I was angling for the 10% potential commission from his properties because we were managing a very large estate. He obliged, and without much haggling, he gave it to me, and he said with serious caution, if you do not manage my estate well, I'll remove my business from you." But I'm grateful we didn't fail. That client stayed with us for many years, and he actually named me as one of the executors of his will. When opportunity comes knocking, don't duck. Answer with boldness. A demeaning attitude is something you'll experience in the leadership journey over and over again. But if you are overcome by offense of any kind, you will not achieve your goals. People may despise you because you are young, may despise you because of your gender, may despise you because of your tribe, your nationality, or even your personality. But always focus on the results. Someone told me that results is the sweetest revenge for anyone who despises you. Are leaders born, or are they made? Was I just lucky, or are there some principles of leadership that can be learned and honed by everyone? In the year 2000, I decided to embark on leadership training. I got into a structured leadership program. I traveled to the Haggai International Center in the United States of America to the island of Hawaii. My kids were still very small, but we made the decision that I should go and get trained. This is where I was introduced to the phrase, a man living without purpose is a restless and aimless man. I was asked the big questions of life. What's your biblical mandate? I had never heard of the phrase. Why are you here on earth? Do you have a purpose on earth? And so many other questions. Here I was, a lawyer working at a very busy law firm, married to a good man, blessed with two beautiful children. I was, by some standards, you'd say, successful. And yet I didn't have a precise answer to these big life questions. At the leadership school, I received a major paradigm shift in my thinking about life. I was introduced to the ABC of leadership. A, achieve the task. B, build the team. C, care for the individuals. Great leadership happens when all three circles, A, B, C, are working together. I received by instruction and by revelation that my life here on earth is to serve a greater purpose in my Heavenly Father's estate than just my personal concerns, my little personal concerns of feeling good. First, my purpose on earth is the paramount driver of everything else that I was doing on earth. Define purpose, define direction, define the north, and then you can engage. Secondly, I am on earth as an image bearer of the Heavenly Father, of the Creator, to do His will and to do it for His glory. Thirdly, I participate in the governance of the earth as a delegated steward to be fruitful, to multiply, and to subdue the earth. So I acted on the training. These key lessons, I took them with vigor. I acted on the training I had received. I wrote down a personal vision statement. I set goals, and I had an action plan. I covenanted when I was on the island of Hawaii to stop being an onlooker, but become an active participant in God's world. I left feeling like a woman whose torch had been lit and ready to conquer the world. I would say if you've never enrolled in leadership class intentionally, I invite you to do so. Jesus mentored 12 disciples by design. He called them by name. He walked with them for 3 years, just a small group of 12. Walking alongside someone who knows the way and goes the way will definitely empower your leadership. When I came home from that training, my life changed 360 degrees. I made a major shift in my legal work to focus on helping people. I paid more attention on assisting families grappling with family conflicts. I visited orphanages. I listened to stories of how children come into those orphanages. The reasons were so varied, from death of parents, unwanted pregnancies, children picked up from streets or rescued from pits. I became very actively involved in supporting adopting families through the tedious legal processes of our courts of law. I supported many clients through these processes. I noticed that there were gaps in the law on adoption and guardianship. So I started interviewing judges. And when I pursued my second master's, I researched on the cause of the increase in adoption cases in the country and what policies should we put in place to support families. I was no longer just driven by profit. I was driven by purpose. How do we impact the lives of people? A key enduring result of the leadership training I received was that we founded the Destiny Leadership School. It's one of the goals that I set while I was at the training. We set up this school to equip leaders to serve with excellence and integrity. Our goal is to walk alongside leaders in a mentoring relationship and support them with tools and knowledge on how to lead. We conduct multidisciplinary classes over a homegrown curriculum. Afterwards, we graduate them in a grand ceremony where leaders from business, from the executive, from legislature, from the judiciary come in a celebratory event. Let me now talk to you about my experience in political leadership. I recall one morning in October 2010, my husband and I were praying. My phone rang at approximately 6:30 a.m. It was the president of our nation. He said, "Dorothy, my daughter, can you help me with a small assignment?" But when he explained the small assignment, I said, "Your Excellency, this is no small assignment at all. Can I get back to you after some reflection?" "Okay," he said, "I'll call you tomorrow morning." I realized it was an urgent matter. So my husband and I, we immediately prayed about it. This was the second time the president was giving me an assignment. I sought the counsel of a friend who was working with government at the time, and I explained the assignment. The president was identifying candidates to be appointed on the electoral commission of the ruling party. The party had just gone through tumultuous intra-party primaries, and a new leadership team was being sought to be put in place. So she said to me, "My sister, do you know that there are millions and millions of people in Uganda who can do that work? Do you think you are the only one qualified to do this job? It's a privilege to serve. Just get ready and do the job." I was gently rebuked by this wise woman. I accepted and took on the assignment as a commissioner at the Electoral Commission of the ruling party. Of course, I had reservations. First, it was taking me away from familiar territory of being a lawyer, of being practicing in the law courts. And I had laboriously built up my law firm. I was proud of it. Secondly, I had no appetite for political arena. My father had been a member of parliament, and I had watched his political engagements for so many years. I knew the turmoil it causes families. I didn't want to be part of that drama. But we accepted the engagement, and I reported for duty. That work thrust me into leadership practice in a political environment. It's a whole new ballgame. It's very different from typical institutional leadership. There is a significant level of push and shove at the political party. The need to look powerful, the need to talk big, the need to have followers. Guarding your power center was the order of the day. I found this aspect of the work very, very challenging. Why? Because my biblical Christianity value said humility, is a cherished value. And here I was being encouraged to posture as a very powerful person. I remember one day, my car refused to start as I was leaving the office. The battery was down. The young men on the premises quickly crowded to assist me. They did not only assist me, but they wanted also to protect me from being seen in that state, a weak state, they called it. How could the car of the commissioner fail to start? Of course, the car finally started with the help of the young men. One older lady told me later, "Madam, just buy a new car. You are big. You are now very big. You can't drive this car." This was a contradiction for me with the Christian leadership values I lived by, because I understood that leadership is not about perks, rather it should be a service to others. So did I buy the bigger car? No, I did not buy the bigger car. Maybe I should say I did not buy it at that time. But I ensured that my car battery wouldn't play tricks on me again. So political leadership, law firm leadership, different kinds of leadership. But in 2020, I was thrust into a wider arena, city governance. I was appointed as the Chief Executive Officer of Kampala, the capital city of Uganda. This was during the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. And soon after I assumed office, we received a presidential directive regarding the administration of the markets in the city. The directive said that the city administration should immediately repossess the city markets that belong to government and bring them back to government administration. Anyone in public service will tell you that presidential directives require swift action. It's not about will you do it, it is when will you do it. So we immediately organized ourselves, we moved into action. Our markets are very lucrative trading spaces in the city. Income is derived through gate levies and from the rentals. And for many years, the city administration was not in charge. Government was not in charge of the 16 city markets. There is one particular the largest market in the city. Actually, it's said that is the largest market in East Africa. It's called Owino Market. It is on an expanse of a whole 8 acres and more. Owino Market is a place where you can purchase virtually anything, all household goods, hardware, medicinal plants, animal products, all the new clothes and a lot more. It's a beautiful place. It's like a tourist attraction, actually. It was not easy to take over this market because the hitherto administrators fiercely resisted the takeover. The people who were looking after it, who were not government, resisted it fiercely. There were gangs of Bayaye, we call them Bayaye here in Kampala, hired to forcefully frustrate the government takeover of the market. The term Bayaye is used to loosely describe people who are idle and disorderly. Usually they are illiterate, hooligans, prostitutes, the good for nothing people in society. That's what they're usually. If you behave in a funny way, you are called a Muyaye. It became evident that achieving success with the Owino market was a matter of life and death for some people because the groups were in charge of it didn't want to let it go. In fact, the existing market leadership took the matter to courts of law and sought temporary injunctions to bar us from taking over the market as city administration. One day, I was visited by a young man who was familiar with the city. He tabled what I would say a novel suggestion. He said, "Madam Executive Director, I have an idea. Why don't you just meet the gang leaders from the market, talk to them and find a solution to this problem?" I was both bemused and horrified. How could I be seen to sit on the same table with city gang leaders? I categorically told him, I can't do it. I am a Christian. I don't do gangster talks. I don't fraternize with wrongdoers. But he pressed on. The disgust on my face seemed not to register with him. "Executive Director, this city is very difficult," he said. "You need to work with all sorts of people. Just humble yourself. Talk to people who are not like you. That is how you get results." I shook my head, stunned by the sheer lunacy of his suggestion. I gave him a firm no, and we parted. But the market takeover didn't get resolved. One day after a few weeks, he came back to me, says, "Madam, do you know that everybody is talking about you, that you've only managed to take over the small markets, but you have failed to do the major work in the city of taking over the largest city market? That will not go down well with the appointing authority." That really got my attention. So I gave in and decided to meet the gang leaders. So one evening at approximately 7 p.m., I was led by my friend, the young man, and the others I was led under the cover of darkness to a secluded location within the city. We stepped off the main street, walked along a dimly lit corridor and into a big room. My security detail was in tow. I was adorned in a long dark jacket. I had something on my head, but did not give me any gangster look to boast about. I was just like an old woman walking in the city. Then we entered. They were seated in one corner, two young men. I had expected to meet a larger group, but I didn't say so. Here I was with two commanders, as they referred to themselves. The conversation was cryptic. The language was colloquial. It was city vernacular, spoken with a slur, like that, with an attitude. After getting through the verbosity and ambiguous communication, which consisted of them boasting about their many exploits in the city, I made the big ask. I said, you know why I'm here. The city is taking over the markets. Government is taking over the markets. I want you to vacate over in the market. That mood changed immediately. Where do you want us to go? That's our livelihood, said the hooded one. And he defiantly turned his face away from me, like, what are you talking about? The other one, the softer one, says, what will you give us in exchange? This was my third time to meet this particular young man because he had come to see me in the office over different issues. I could see a wind of willingness to transact when he said, what will you give us in exchange? So I chose to focus on the business transaction and ignore his partner's questions. I said, look, we have a lot of work in this city and government has a budget. Government is the best employer in the nation. Why don't you come and work with us in different work? We can give you work and we can pay. Government can pay. That got their attention and they visibly leaned into the conversation. You have work? Which work will you give us? We can't work in offices. My previous work with the Prime Minister's office had given me insight into government policy, a policy which was called money for work, as a better option to handouts. So I say to them, why don't we try out you doing work, which is not office work, but which can enable you actually to transit into the money economy. Of course, I was making an offer, yet I had a whole group of stakeholders in the administration who had to agree with this first. But I needed something to go by. They said, we are young and strong and we can work. Let's see if we can do this. At that time, the city was under lockdown because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Our staffing was down to 20% because most workers were working from home. There were many blocked drainages in the city center which were causing heavy flooding at the time. We needed to get rid of it urgently. So I say to them, I want you to clean the city drainages urgently. Do this work for me and we shall find a budget to pay you. How much? I say there's a city rate per day for casuals. I mean, the city pays a rate to people at a casual rate. We will pay you at that rate for each day worked. My team will work out the details and each man will be paid for work done. They said, give us a chance to consult. They moved away from my negotiation table and consulted. When they returned, I was hopeful, but they say the arrangement was not palatable. We have many people who are with us. Just give us the whole lump of money and then we shall be able to pay our teams ourselves. I said, no, we cannot do that. First of all, they had not gained my trust. What if I paid them and they just disappeared? What if I paid them and they failed to pay their workers? Additionally, what if they failed to deliver according to our expectations? So I said, no. I was looking for a long-term view a long-term solution. For them, they were looking for emmere ya leero, food for today. They wanted a hit and run situation. But they were obstinate, equally obstinate. They wanted the whole pot of money paid to them so that they could hire out others. We refused. It was a stalemate. It was awkward silence. The meeting ended. And they said, give us a chance to consult others. I knew they were not coming back. I said goodbye and sighed and heaved a heavy sigh of relief. And I was remaining with my young man who had taken me. And he said, Madam, it's okay. Don't be discouraged. Let's try to meet them again. Just be patient. Keep trying. You'll get results. And indeed, they came back. They came back for a second meeting. Our second meeting was more upbeat. There were now 4 gangsters. They came with their friends. It was all business, bargaining for the pot of gold. I insisted there was no such pot of gold. This was no short-term hit and run plan. We need structure for the working relationship, procurements, contracts, regularization. I need a buy-in from other key players. Eventually, after talking back and forth, they got it. The immediate action required was to vacate the market. I said, you support us you vacate the market with all your allies and work with us to obtain quiet possession of the market. They said they would do it within an agreed time, so long as I keep my part of the bargain. And they did. We re-entered the market with their support, and we were able to start administering Owino market, something that many people had said was totally impossible. All the markets were now under government administration in fulfillment of the presidential directive. It was such a huge relief to achieve this. But I had now to move on and get their part of the bargain. How do we get them into the work economy? Luckily, we still had a lot of work on the ground of opening up the drainages. So they came on as casual workers and were paying them a casual pay, a casual rate. I went and inspected some of the sites they were working on. They were doing fantastic work. Every evening they would gather together and have these motivation talks. But as life is, we hit 2 snags. One, the budget for casual workers could only accommodate a limited number. We had started with 50, they grew to 100, they grew to 200, they were now approaching 500, and we didn't have a budget for the growing numbers. But at the back of my mind was this whole transformation agenda of these lives, with or without the institutional budget. So I decided to talk to some friends, some people with money, not necessarily friends, some business people, so that we could get some budget to support them as casual workers. It was not sustainable. We did for a few months, but was not sustainable as the group grew into thousands. It grew into thousands of men and women spread out in each of the Kampala divisions. When the new financial year began, we got a breakthrough. The city administration was able to obtain a budget, institutional budget, and so were able to absorb 2,500 of them, each division having, of the 5 divisions, each division was having 500 people. This was a huge step. It was a huge celebration. One day, a police chief came to my office for a courtesy call. He said, I have been around for a while, executive director. I want to commend you for the work with the Bayayi. We have noticed its impact on the security of the city streets. That message encouraged me so much. He said the number of pickpockets had gone down, the number of men who are beating women on the streets, not to steal from them, had gone down. However, the new workforce was still referred to as Bayayi. This was a new problem. They were still regarded as thieves and hooligans, and they were referred to with the unflattering references. One day I was driving through the city and I saw the boys at work in one of the suburbs. I stopped and greeted them, and they took a picture with me, which was posted on social media. When one of our city's prominent political leaders saw it, he called me on the phone and said, "Have you seen the picture of the hooligans with the executive director?" That statement was a little uncomfortable. I said, "You mean after all this good work, we still just see these boys as hooligans?" The perception among those who had known them before their new work was that they were thugs. So I called the leaders again together and I said, "Look, we need to rebrand your group. We need to baptize you a name that is acceptable within the community, because you've changed, but your name hasn't changed." So they were enthusiastic. "What shall we do? What will you call us, Mama? What will you call us?" And I said, "Since our city is built on 7 hills, why don't we just adopt the name 7 Hills and becomes your brand name, because you're working all over the city?" Oh, they were so excited. They immediately took up the 7 Hills name. They started putting on t-shirts with 7 Hills, caps with 7 Hills, jackets with 7 Hills, banners with 7 Hills. They started composing songs of 7 Hills. They opted for an orange and green color as their brand. They registered a SACCO, a savings and credit saving scheme, under their brand name. For each of the divisions, they started saving money. They got identity cards under their new registered name. 7 Hills membership grew every single day because now they were a proper brand, and its success soared in the city. I remember manager of a local bank came to my office and said, "I'm hearing of the fame of 7 Hills. Look, if you're willing, I can open bank accounts for them, and so that they get ATM cards." Ooh, this was so exciting. They opened up banking accounts. They really began to look like a very well organized group. Their fame was growing and their branding was recognized. I was so thankful. We organized a Thanksgiving ceremony at the Kololo airstrip, the city airstrip. Almost 5,000 of them gathered. We called it a frontliners Thanksgiving. We had the police playing. We had the cleaners marching in the city. Speeches were made by political leaders. I delivered a rallying message for unity. The New Vision paper, which is our largest circulating paper, carried a front page headliner saying, "KCCA frontliners celebrated." It's like we had hit a pinnacle in our journey of transformation of the city through the young men and women who were called the Bayaye. We faced many roadblocks. I can't tell you everything, but we faced many roadblocks. There was so much opposition, which was ongoing underneath the successes. But every time we faced a roadblock, something positive came up. I remember around that time, the president of Uganda called a meeting for all the ruling political party leaders at Kololo airstrip. There were many speeches, and the president, as party chairman, was the last to speak. He made an unexpected pronouncement regarding the cleaning of the city. He said, "Now, regarding the cleaning of the city, I've heard of this controversy regarding 7 Hills Group. These children were doing bad things in the city, but Dorothy Kisaka mobilized them. She converted them, and they're now reformed and are cleaning the city. Therefore, do not disrupt their work, because because she's turning the biblical souls into poles. If there are others, we shall include them too." Ooh, this was it was a thunderous applause. The video clip of the pronouncement by the president circulated on social media. The boys changed their names. Now they were calling themselves souls turned into poles. They printed t-shirts. They called themselves the preachers of the gospel. This marked a major turnaround in the Seven Hills journey. And we did have a celebration around the city when this happened. This achievement was celebrated with a grand city procession led by the leaders of the city, singing and shouting and waving to standbys. And as if it was a marker in the journey, even the city administration officially procured them as an official cleaning group of the city. Now, the next step in this transformation journey was taking Seven Hills to the church, because I realized, yes, they are earning money, but their lives need to be changed internally. Luckily, my church worked together. They formed what was called the Seven Hills Squad, whose goal was to ensure Seven Hills teams are absorbed in the Kampala churches to hear the gospel and to be discipled. The different churches had different efforts. Some served them breakfast. The workers would arrive early, hear the gospel, pray, and have breakfast at the church. One of the churches held their meetings on Friday mornings to accommodate the unique needs of Seven Hills. At my local church, over 500 were added to the church in one day, literally. The church leadership had to make a quick decision to transform one of the services into the vernacular service to accommodate the non-English speakers. There was a major turnaround in the Seven Hills journey. They were locked, they were plugged into the church. One day, one of the Seven Hills leaders told me, "Mama, your church is too small to accommodate all of us. Let us just meet on a Saturday in a large place. You come and address us, and your leaders come and address us." We did that. We did that at one of the football pitches. There were about 3,000 in attendance. The gospel was preached, testimonies were shared, food was served. It was a magnificent gathering of the city rejects, if I should call that. And so many other things that happened. They became part and parcel of what was happening in the city transformation and in national transformation. They were part of our preparation for the non-aligned movement summits in the city in 2024, and so on and so on. What have I learned? What did I learn through this? So many things. I learned that building a smart city is about building lives. We do well to build infrastructure, but we do better to build lives. We started the journey with getting the small group of Bayaye into the money economy, but that's not enough. The transformational journey must continue with skilling, with discipling, with training, with locking them into a system that enables them to prosper. There are thousands of young people in the cities we live whose lives need transformation. I learned that institutional transformation is undergirded by people transformation. This is an ongoing task and requires the involvement of many stakeholders. It is transformed people who transform their institutions, who then transform their cities. The socio-economic reforms must be balanced out with the interest of the ongoing politics of the various players. I became very much aware of the cosmic battle for dominion of the city. It is a war of kingdoms, the kingdom of light and the kingdom of darkness. The struggles we faced were not simply for acceptance of 7 years. It was much more than I can share today. The venom that was directed to me as executive director, as champion of 7 Hills, was lethal. It was dehumanizing. It was brutal. I did not walk from victory to victory. And if we didn't have a clear vision, I would definitely have given up on this vision. But my vision, the vision I had, was transformation of the lives. The vision I had is that I'm a participant. I'm delegated in the earth to be part of the governance system. And that focused me. God sent us help through different voices, and this fueled our resolve. I want to give glory to God. It's God who ultimately transforms lives. I am no longer at the helm of the city administration. But because this group was locked into the procurement process, they continue to work. And thousands of people's lives have been transformed. At every difficult turn, there was a rainbow, a promise of his enduring presence, the assurance that this was his work and he accomplishes what he starts. We wrestled invisible forces. All leaders wrestle. Apostle Paul calls these forces principalities and powers and rulers of darkness and spiritual wickedness in high places. When you set to achieve for the kingdom, it is not all smooth, but you press on as a leader. You put on the whole armor of God. God clothes us with the armor, which is talked about in Ephesians chapter 6. I'm very thankful for the unending prayers of saints, the unending prayers of saints that enable us to stand. You must stand the flaming arrows of false accusation and persevere through the hard times. God has promised He will never leave you, He will never forsake you. My leadership journey is full of so many experiences. I could share more and more, but I'm so thankful that all of us have an opportunity to engage as leaders where God has called us. My clarion call is intentionally plug into leadership training. It's not a luxury. It may be for a short while, it may be for 2 weeks, it may be for 1 month. At Destiny Leadership School, we do a whole year. We do modules, different modules, but we do a school for a whole year. I've engaged in postgraduate studies for years in leadership training. This is a lifelong experience. So may you blossom, may you thrive, may you grow in your leadership experience. And again, I salute the Evangelical Fellowship of Zimbabwe for this work. God bless you. Kwaheri, kwaheri.